Go ahead and, all right, there we go. So we can go on to doing a quick roll call. And usually Sonia does that. So I guess I can do it if I can find my list. Let's see. Which of course I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but give me 1 second and I will. Or Dory, do you have it pulled up in front of you?
The what?
Oh, I think I just found it. It's the second page of the agenda item or the agenda PDF. So,
Yes, I do.
okay. Do you want to do a roll call then?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. We have the non-updated one though, so I will just go through. And Julie, I see you are here.
Yep.
Sonia, not yet. And Valerie Switzler, not yet. Michael Cherry, she declined, unable. Angela Fasana, she on here yet? Nope. Alyssa Severson. Nope. Not that I see. Jennifer Jackson, I saw you, I believe. Sorry, writing these down at the same time I call them. Melissa, I saw you, I believe.
Here.
Thank you. And let me flip back to our new folks. Jamie Crane, and she was off our list, right, Dana?
She's on the list.
Okay, I don't see her. Jemiah, is he coming today?
I'm not sure if he's gonna come or not. He's got a language camp going on, so he may or may not be here.
Okay. Becky, I believe I saw you. I thought I did. Maybe
No,
not.
Becky Cantrell.
Yes,
Yeah,
she just emailed me. I believe she's gonna pop in though.
Oh, okay.
So, but not yet. Okay. And Marcia,
Becky's iPhone is logging in, so I'm assuming that's Becky Cantrell.
all right.
Once it's connected to audio, we can find out.
Yay. And Marcia Frost, I don't see. Okay. Jennifer Reed, I see you. And that's all I have on my list. Jesse Jackson, sorry, I see you also. And that is what I have on my list.
And Sonia's here now. And also, which Becky? Becky Cantrell?
So sorry, yes, Becky.
Hi, yeah, sorry, it's Becky Cantrell. I joined a little late. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
My dentist appointment took a lot longer than I thought.
We've all been there. Well, thanks for being here, everyone.
You're gonna mute Dana.
Yeah, that would be helpful if I was able to, if people were able to hear me. Thanks everyone for being here. And I have some slides I'm going to pull up in just a second. I know everyone received the information for the meeting in advance. So.
Can I ask you one question, Dana?
Yeah.
I think we got 5 out of 9. Is that quorum or not?
Dory, do you have that?
Yes, it is. I was just counting that up. Yes. Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
So if you need us to do that, we can.
Awesome. I'm not sure that we have anything where we need to take a vote, but obviously having quorum is better than not having it. I just want to check real quick. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so now that we've got all that out of the way and we're running a little late, I'm just gonna jump right into our first topic. But I did want to preface that a little bit just because we've worked really hard over the last couple of months working on the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund language. And as such, there's, of course, you always learn more after you start going about doing something. And so when we first started working on it, TAC didn't want for the future OTELA advisory body to be, or for the future OTELA body to be advisory to the Early Learning Council. And we even put in the draft language that the OTELA would be advisory to DELC. But the problem with that is from a legal perspective, because OTELA is advising DELC and DELC is governed by the Early Learning Council, that OTELA is also technically an advisory body. And with having OTELA having oversight of public funds, it furthermore makes OTELA be subject to public meetings laws as a public body. And so we have a very kind guest who is flexible with their schedule to be here to explain this a little bit better than, much better than I could, and to answer any other questions. So Kevin Gleam, right, from DOJ, I'm going to pass it over to you. And I can stop sharing my screen because I don't really have anything on this slide.
That's fine. And Dana, you did a great job explaining it, actually. So hi, I'm Kevin Gleim. I'm at DOJ. I'm DELC's counsel. Before that, I was one of Governor Brown's lawyers for the last 3 years of her administration. And yeah, I get the fun job of working with DELC and ELC and some other clients from the perspective of DOJ. So I'll just first say that it's a little bit unconventional for me to be doing this in the context outside of an executive session, and we're in a public meeting, and kind of giving legal advice. So I'm going to keep it mostly to just kind of general higher level things, and we can just do questions. And then if there's any specific legal questions, I can take those after. And as long as everyone is still fine with that, I assume, because we're proceeding in this way anyway. But like I said, Dana, you pretty much got it all correct. I mean, the legal, you can find these legal, I'm just going to kind of read, no strict legal advice here, but basically if two or more members of a body, and this is a body, have the authority to make decisions or recommendations to another public body, which is the state and DELC, through DELC, then that's considered a governing body, which is subject to the public meetings law. So that's kind of just a general statement of the law. And you all know this because we've literally just been operating this way. A meeting requires a quorum for any decisions to be made, and you all are making decisions at a minimum, decisions or recommendations about how to use public funds. And so all of that, so if that's the goal and that's the intent, then that makes the body subject to the public meetings law. Now, I think that it might, sometimes the public meetings law can feel constraining, or it can feel like it's impinging on your right to have a frank and honest conversation, things like that. The public records law, public meetings law, all of these open government laws are actually there in a way for increased transparency and accountability. And so I think that, and sometimes some of the you take the discomfort with also the benefit of having all of this be out in the open. I think that every person who comes into a public meeting, especially if they're separate sovereigns, like we are here, each party to that side of the discussion can benefit in a way from that transparency and that accountability. So For instance, you all can come to this meeting here, and since all of it is in the open, we're literally recording this right now, in a way that holds Delk accountable to some of your objectives and how you'd want to see some of the public funds, for using that example, accomplish, right? It's just in a meeting, it's recorded, it's in the minutes, you can point to it later, and if Delk doesn't hold up their end of the bargain, if things don't work out how you'd like it to, it's all recorded and it's in the meeting, and you can refer back to that later. So you can see there's some mutual benefit to separate sovereigns and other kind of equal partners coming to the table on things like that. So it's not all bad. I know that sometimes it sounds kind of scary to come into a public meeting, or at least at a minimum uncomfortable. But I kind of wanted to come in with that perspective. I think that accountability should probably be seen as the primary benefit. And if I were looking at the system, or at this situation from kind of an outside perspective, like I am at DOJ, I might not be inclined to see it as some kind of impingement or infringement on sovereignty. I think, again, we're all here in some way as separate sovereigns coming to the table, holding each other accountable, keeping things transparent, in the nature of kind of what we do here in Oregon, which is pretty pro-transparency. So I can answer questions, kick around thoughts about that. But I think in light of the goal and how I understand the dynamic, it's pretty clear that TAC and then how OTEL is being conceived would be subject to the public meetings law. But I also don't think that's necessarily such a bad thing either.
Is it okay to ask a question?
Yeah.
My name is Julie Seastrom, and I'm Hannes Koos. I'm tribal council for the Confederate Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua and Siuslaw Indians, and I'm also wearing several other hats, and one of them today is as the second person on this committee. And I just want to make sure that I understand properly the reasoning why Otella is now adhering to the public funds law and the public records law, and make sure that I understand that they do or do not have the option of having an executive session with only tribes present.
So the question is whether Otella could hold an executive session with only tribes present.
Yes, that's one of the things that I've only been involved in this since fall 2021. And that was one of the things that we enjoyed in between then and since this change has occurred, where whoever was on the meeting as far as tribal participants were concerned, there was a time where we could break off and go into a separate room, and we could have a discussion and about whatever it is we were concerned about or questions or whatever, talk amongst ourselves, and then we would come back to the general group and with all people present. So I just wondered if that's still something that we can do, or is that not something that we can do anymore?
The short answer is it depends on how you do all of that. You absolutely could hold an executive session with this group, with the I guess the future conception of how Otella will look at the time, which are just the tribal representatives. But you can only do that for really specific purposes that are listed in the public meetings law. And I don't think a general discussion without it meeting one of the specific provisions would be allowed, so to speak. That doesn't mean that you all couldn't have separate conversations outside of this group. For instance, if your tribe has designated a member to attend Otella, to be kind of the designated representative for Otella, then someone else in the tribe or even in like the department that they come from could presumably have separate conversations amongst the tribe with other tribes, with elk, tons of different variations that you can imagine. And that wouldn't be a violation of public meetings law, I don't think, with that kind of fact pattern. So there's a lot of ways to do it, and I think it would just really depend on the situation. But I don't think it is in like every case you can meet with with a quorum of the members, the representatives here, just hold an executive session just to talk about a general topic. So you need to be kind of thoughtful about how you did it. But I think there's a way.
Thank you.
Good question, though.
Yeah, that was a really good question, Julie. Thanks for bringing it up. Are there any other questions for Kevin? Anything else about public meetings law?
What a fun topic.
Absolutely. I see Val has joined as well. Hi, Val.
Hi, folks.
I'm not sure when you hopped on, but we were just talking about the public meetings law. And so if you need a little recap, we can always connect later.
Okay, yeah, I think I got the gist of it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I didn't see when you hopped on because I was trying to take notes, but awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you again for coming. We really appreciate you. And thank you for sharing that perspective. And so, yeah, I guess that's it. You can have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Enjoy your Monday.
Thank you. You all too. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Bye. All right. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'll get through a real quick just reporting reminder. All right. It says that participants can see my screen, so I'm going to assume that you can. I sent this out in our first newsletter on the 8th, so you might have seen this already if you've signed up for the newsletter. The newsletter, because all the laws, we should have kept Kevin on, because of all the laws about spam mailings and stuff, we can't just put your name on a mailing list for a newsletter. So there's a link that you have to sign up for the newsletter in order to start getting it. They're going to be monthly. Anyway, this reporting reminder was one of those topics, and I just wanted to make sure to get that in front of you because as you can see, the first due date for the biannual progress reports is July 30th, and now it's August. But you might actually not have a report due depending on where you are at with your agreement and where how your tribe's like business office or finance office works. So if you don't have an executed agreement yet, or if you haven't used the funds yet, you might not have a report due. The way that your tribe operates is that they will only start applying funds to the grant once it's executed, then you wouldn't have a report due yet. If your tribe is a kind who would backdate funds that were spent prior to the execution date back to when the grant's effective date is, which is January 1st, 2024, then you would have a report due because of the funds just being reapplied to the grant. And so I just wanted to put that out there and see if there's any questions about how that works.
Okay, to ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you able to resend this a second time to us?
Yeah, absolutely. That I can do that, no problem. And I can include the links that are being mentioned. So the one to sign up for the newsletter. There's also a reporting link it's the same one as last year for the reports. And I also saw Val's question. You, so if any of you wanted to let me know which category you fell in, you can email me, call me, text me, or I might reach out and ask you about it later. So that's also an opportunity, or telling me now, whatever works best for you. And I think, Val, I already know that you're in the latter category where you can't spend funds until the agreement's actually executed, if I remember from ESEF correctly. So are there any other questions about that? I did want to mention one other thing from the newsletter, which is probably the most exciting thing that we shared, is that the Child Care Infrastructure Fund is now accepting applications. So for recap, basically the Child Care Infrastructure Fund is a pot of $10 million in grants for the first round. And then there's going to be, I think, $15 million in the second round that will go to childcare infrastructure, so buildings, remodeling, stuff like that. And it's going through Business Oregon. The application's open August 15th is when it opened, and it goes through September 30th at like 4:59 p.m. is the cutoff time. And in conjunction with that, Delk has a technical assistance contract. So we have providers who will do technical assistance with potential applicants for the Child Care Infrastructure Fund and ongoing technical support if you receive it. One of the exciting things is that we were able to contract with Northwest Native Chamber. And so they're one of the providers. Northwest Native Chamber has a very strong track record of working with Native-owned businesses and tribes. And they are pretty amazing, and they're actually hosting a webinar on the Child Care Infrastructure Fund application. So I want to let you all know about that. That's and I can email it to you with the link and everything, but that's going to be August 21st from noon to 1. And you can also reach out to them if you have questions. And another thing we could do, if you're interested, is we could even explore inviting one of the leads for this work from Northwest Native Chamber to join us in another TAC meeting, if that's something you're interested in. I know our next TAC meeting is in September, so it would be before the application closes. So if anyone's interested in that, I could definitely start working on arranging that, and they could do like a short presentation and a Q&A. So does that sound like something that TAC would want? Okay, I see a thumbs up from Julie, but I don't have everyone on my screen, so thumbs up. Thumbs up from Becky.
Al and Jennifer as well, and Sonia, Jesse.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much the whole group of TAC members, at least. I mean, Delk staff can give me a thumbs up also, but it will just be a bonus. So, all right, I will work on doing that. It's just, I think it's a great opportunity, and obviously whoops, that's not the right sheet. It's a great opportunity, and so I'll work on doing that. All right, so I know there's a lot on this screen, so I have I'll talk about a little bit, and then I'm going to hand it over to Alyssa. But basically what this is where we're going with Otella scheduling and also the legislative timeline. So it's kind of mixing two topics from our agenda into one, but it will make sense when we start talking about it. October is probably the next most important time for all of us. So we worked really hard on putting together the bill language for the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund, and that was submitted on TAC's behalf in June. And that language basically is going to go to Legislative Council, who's going to draft that language into a bill. And so in theory, it could end up just being what we've submitted, and their job is easier, but that might not happen. It might come back differently than what we provided to them. And so that's why the time in October is so important, to reconvene as a group and review the language and make any adjustments that are needed. The major constraint here is that there's kind of two major constraints. One is that Delk's only going to have 5 to 7 days to get back with the edits. And the other factor is, while on here the date is October 25th, that date might change. And so if that's the date that has been given to us, however, it's not necessarily set in stone. So I wanted to highlight that. And what the rest of the calendar goes over is what Delk, TAC, and Otella, and the G2G Ed Cluster and the legislature will have over the coming months. We obviously think that in October, with getting that language back, it would be great to have a meeting with TAC, but we also recognize that having the date be kind of up in the air, and also that it's a busy time of the year, that's middle of the school year and right before Halloween, like that's could make it challenging to come together and do an in-person work session. So we might have to play it by ear, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. And if so, and it could end up being that we ended up with a drafter who mostly kept language that we had submitted in the first place. And so if that's the case, then the work session can kind of morph into using that time for other important things. Like we could start working on the tribal early learning plan, or if that's something that this group wants to do, we could talk about like the Otella selection process for the advisory community members and like how that would work. But I also wanted to kind of take a step back and look at what has been done in July, and also talk about what all these acronyms are. So in July, we sent a Dear Tribal Leader letter out to all the tribes about the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund. And we included in that a request for involvement when Delk receives the language back in October. So I know some of you were recipients of that letter, so you already know, but given that, we also have an update for August. In August, the ARB is released, and ARB is Agency Request Budget. And then in September, we get a revenue forecast. And also in September, Delk will be presenting to the Legislative Commission on Indian Services and possibly to the legislature. So this is where I defer to Alyssa to talk about the ARB and where we're at with that.
Thanks, Dana. Yeah, so as Dana mentioned, we're preparing to release our agency request budget. This is actually required for agencies to release by September 1st, and then the governor's recommended budget will come out December 1st. So for the last 10 years, ARB has really been used as a way for agencies to communicate what communities and tribes and partners have elevated as major needs for the coming biennium. And we've sort of been able to take a look and kind of say, you know, what's reasonable, but able to put forward kind of that menu of options as part of ARB. But given the latest revenue forecast, Governor Kotek has directed all agencies to limit their budget requests to no more than 1% of our budget. So for Delk, that's a little less than $6 million for general fund requests. And the only exceptions to this 1% cap are the governor's initiatives, so housing, behavioral health, and early literacy, which for Delk is defined as the birth through 5 literacy plan. So what will happen here is, with this 1% cap in mind, our agency request budget will not include the Tribal Early Learning Fund request. However, the governor is committed to tribal sovereignty and ensuring that tribes don't continue to face the same barriers you all have been surfacing in the TAC meetings that many of you have surfaced in the governor's visits. And she wants to ensure any new resources are built on what tribes have been asking for and what works for you all. So the governor is still open to discussing how to operationalize an investment specifically for early learning in tribes in her recommended budget that will come out December 1st. So you kind of see here in when Dana was kind of sharing the timeline, originally what we talked about was we would submit a legislative concept, which we've been working on with you all, and then we would put forward the funding request in ARB that would come out September 1st. This is sort of delaying that process, and we'll spend the next couple of months working with you all and the governor's office before the governor's recommended budget. So as Dana mentioned, we sent a Dear Tribal Leader letter in July requesting sort of approval, endorsement, consensus around the TAC recommendation to establish a tribal early learning plan and fund in lieu of a tribal early learning hub. Another request that has surfaced since then, as we have been getting direction on ARB and sort of this 1% limit, what would be really helpful is to understand from each of you and each of your tribes how much funding you feel like you could reasonably spend in a biennium. I know the TAC has shared the desire to do an even 9-way split. I remember we talked before about, is it a funding formula based on number of children in your community? Is it, are there different factors? And the consensus was an even 9-way split. And so our hope was that we can come back to the September TAC meeting and hear from you all about what is an amount that you all think you could spend in the first biennium, knowing that can grow over time and we can make future requests, and how you all would want to land on a final number for us to estimate for the governor's consideration in GRB. So this is a shift from how we had talked about bringing this forward, but the governor's committed to continuing to partner in understanding what this should and could look like for her recommended budget. So I'll pause there if there's questions.
This is Sonia. So I think we had talked a little bit like before. Is it possible to, not by identifying tribe, but maybe put together some of the things that are allowable or tribes have done? I think it makes it easier in looking at how to spend money, because I know that at different times until I spoke to what other tribes were doing, we had only received federal funding, and so those are strict limitations. So once that I understood how other tribes were able to spend, it made it easier to go forward. Is it possible to put together, and again, not identifying any tribes, but just some of the things that tribes were able to expend the previous money on? And my second part to that is, this would be a full biennium, not just a year. It would be similar to when we got the 133. It would be a 2-year spend, correct?
Correct. Yep. Our hope would be, so I think to the first part, yes. And Dana, feel free to jump in. I know we've collected some of that already, so we should be able to pull that together fairly quickly, what has been spent in the past, as well as recap, I think, what we've heard from you all in terms of desired allowable uses alongside how much is being defined in statute. And I know we've been working with you all on finding that balance between adding some requirements, but not restricting funding. And then, yes, the goal would be that this is 2 years of funding. As Dana shows here, we likely won't know whether this is funded until towards the end of the legislative session, which is June 25th. But our team would be working with the Tribal Advisory Committee, with you all, with our procurement shop, to be able to have those grant agreements ready so that you're able to get those dollars as soon as possible. And we'd be happy, I think we would really like to work with you all in terms of what that ideal timeline looks like in terms of reviewing agreements, knowing we may not have the final dollar figure until the budget passes. So would love to work with the TAC, but also we would likely leverage a Dear Tribal Leader letter and consultation to figure out what folks need when, knowing that we may not know the dollar amount until close to the end of session.
So I actually have a clarifying question about that because we in the past had continuing service level funding. And so in this case, since Otella isn't continuing, well, the Otella grant isn't continuing, it will be Tribal Early Learning Fund that will replace it. Would it still be eligible to at least continue getting what it's been receiving?
It should. I think we can work with the procurement team and DOJ to kind of adapt. We would presumably, this is built into our current service level budget, so we'll assume that same level of funding. We'll persist and hope for more. And we'll update the language once we have new dollar figures. So Dana, we would work internally with our teams on sort of the best way to approach that.
Thank you. And then I think, well, I'll wait and see if there's any other questions real quick.
It's okay to ask a question?
Always.
It's a little bit confusing for me, Alyssa, because I think that what you need us to do is be comfortable with the unknown. I'm not sure if I understand you correctly. Like we were fortunate to have the support, you know, the 130 some odd thousand for those 2 years. But now that is not going to be coming, if I understand you correctly, that is not going to be coming from Otella. And we're going to be working out a similar but a different kind of support system with your avenues internally, and we'll find out the results of that as time goes by. Do I have a glimmer of understanding of what you're saying?
That's basically it, Julie. Last biennium was 130-ish thousand because we were able to leverage some federal funding that's ended. So this biennium, it's been about 70,000. Our what we've been working with you all is shifting that Otella grant, the Tribal Early Learning Hub funding, to a Tribal Early Learning Fund that would be larger, that would be more than 70,000 per tribe. What would be helpful for us to know by the September TAC is how much funding can each of your tribes reasonably spend in a 2-year period, knowing everybody has different levels of infrastructure and capacity to spend down those dollars, so that we could work on a renewed request for the governor to consider in her recommended budget that's due December 1st. And we won't know whether that recommendation is taken until December 1st. We'll know if it's in GRB, and then we'll have to go through the legislative session from January through June of next year to know what the final dollar figure is.
Well,
but the hope is that if it's funded ongoing, so sometimes the legislature will say, we'll do this one time, and then we're back into the unknown. But the hope would be that they say this is something we'll fund permanently. And so there'd be a lot more certainty going forward. We may come say we'd like even more money to go into this fund in the future, but we'd have a little bit more certainty in terms of the base level and less of this. It's changed every biennium. We want to create a reliable funding stream for you all.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And this is a lot to digest, and so happy to follow up. I know some of us are visual folks, so if it'd be helpful to kind of break down the budget cycle process or any of that, we're happy to share additional information about where we are in budget development as an agency and kind of what the opportunities are going forward. Which, Dana, if it's okay with you, kind of related to that, can I tap Kate to give an update on legislative days?
Yeah, definitely.
Hi, everyone. As a reminder, I'm Kate Dennison. I'm the Government Affairs Manager for DELC. I'm really happy to see you all again. I wanted to share that in order to highlight the work that we've been doing at the TAG and help advocate for the Tribal Early Learning Fund, we have the opportunity, or you have the opportunity, to speak to the House Early Childhood and Human Services Committee. I can't say confirm that this is set in stone because we don't have the official agenda yet, but that committee will meet on September 23 from 2:30 to 5 p.m. The committee does accept virtual appearances, and we can work with you on getting materials in advance of the hearing and putting together a presentation as needed. But this would really be an opportunity to highlight the work that you've been doing and the importance of seeing an investment in the governor's recommended budget in December. So this is really a platform to elevate all of the good work we've been doing, and could be quite compelling. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, Alyssa. Yeah.
Thanks, Kate.
And in terms of time frame, we usually have 15 minutes tops. It sounds like the agenda is fairly packed, but this is one thing that we expect and hope to see on there.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this setting one that it would be really nice if perhaps Sonia or Valerie, if we were to ask either of them to speak for us, is that something that would be a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. You all as the TAC can, whoever would like to testify and present, we'll be there to answer any logistical questions, but we really wanted to make sure that you all can talk about this work in your words. And then we're happy to support you in preparing materials or answer any questions.
Yeah, and also, Julie, I'm glad you mentioned that, because another thing that I was going to bring up is just the offer for anyone who would like to be a part of the presentation to the Legislative Commission on Indian Services. They could join that as well, just because I recognize there's many people who have been on TAC and been active, and so the invitation is extended to everyone. Obviously, Julie serves on LCIS, so she'll be there naturally. And Sonia has agreed to be there once she works out scheduling with her Alyssa. But anyone who would like to is welcome. It'd be a great opportunity. It's also on my birthday, so you can come hang out with me and LCIS on my birthday, which is September 17th. And I believe that there's the ability for virtual there as well, although it was told to me that the date could end up changing due to some other conflicting meeting. So as soon as I get an update on when that for sure will be, I will share it with you. I guess between those two opportunities, if anyone's interested, I mean, you can signify now with a thumbs up, and we can contact you, or I could put together like a little form, like a Google form or something like that, whatever is easier.
We can follow up with more timing information, and if it would be helpful to talk more about what the purpose of the presentation is, or what materials you would like to kind of use, let us know, and we're happy to set some time and build whatever would be helpful to share. I think as Kate mentioned, one of our hopes is that it's a chance for you all as members of the TAC to say what you want and hope for out of this tribal early learning plan and fund, even though it won't be in our agency request budget. So this will be a conversation kind of in that sweet spot between ARB and the governor's recommended budget coming out, and the importance for the legislature to hear from you all and not hear from us about this work.
Just pulling up the calendar again, because one of the things that Alyssa mentioned a moment ago was being able to come together with a figure by the next TAC meeting. There's also an Ed cluster meeting in September. So that they're more staggered, we could look to moving September's TAC meeting out a little bit so that there's more time to discuss, if that would be helpful. But I also don't know what your schedules look like for September when the school year is just starting. And so we wanted to put that out there if it would be more convenient. Sonia, did you have anything to add about that?
Trying to find you guys again on my phone. No, I don't, but I would love another tribe two to come. I think it's really important for legislature to hear. And then I think pushing the meeting out would be nice, but then I worry about our time of getting all the stuff you need back. But it is hard to go back to back meetings, especially if tribes are traveling. Virtual, it's a little bit easier.
Right.
So other tribes input, please.
Thanks, Jennifer. We could always do like a scheduling poll and send that out. And if there is a time that could work after G2G in September, then we could get that on the calendar. If enough people are able to make it. And then if not, if it seems like things are really conflicting, then we could keep the meeting when it is. Does that sound good to give everyone time to take a look at their calendars? I see some head nods. All right. Thumbs up from Jesse. Thank you. All right. I will put together a scheduling poll. Following from the September meeting and the ask Alyssa shared is also, I believe that the governor's office would like to be able to have like a one-pager that talks about this, or a two-pager document. I guess it depends on how much information we put on it, but that talks about what's the purpose of the Tribal Early Learning Plan, what's the purpose of the Tribal Early Learning Fund, and some frequently asked questions. So I'm gonna just drop what I kind of put together so far in the chat. So you can see it, but I can also put it up on my screen. I just basically all that this is, actually I had a slide for it too, to have a summary of what has been done and where things are going, and to be able to explain easily to others, like what is this Tribal Early Learning Fund and the Tribal Early Learning Plan all about, and to make it digestible. We do have a couple of helpful documents already, like the resource document that Jonas had put together before that contract ended, that explained like what happened in all the meetings, and I've updated it to have information from the meeting since then. So I will continue to keep that updated and make that available to you all as well. But we really just want to ensure that whatever goes out, that it's something that TAC is signing off on, that what the content is agreed to, and that you're able to contribute to it. So what I dropped in the chat is really just my quick overview of everything that has gone on with the Tribal Advisory Committee and where we've gotten to now. And like I said, I heavily relied on the document Jonas put together to get this going. But we could start from scratch. It doesn't have to be this way. And also, like I said, we've got the updated one of our timeline. So we can always go back and reference the more recent months with the details, because a lot has gone on. And even if you miss just one meeting, it's kind of like you're in the dark starting over again. So we have that, and maybe that could also be something we work on in September as a meeting topic for TAC.
Your write-up is very informative. One of the things I don't see a whole lot in there is about tribal language, culture, traditions, and our hope that was once the direction of a early learning hub was to embrace. And this, I do see the one sentence to American Indian Alaskan Native State Plan. However, there was so many different reasons why people wanted to look into a early learning hub. One, it was because we were second thought in the beginning. And they said, well, early learning hubs are going to be there, or they're going to decide on them in just a few short months. And I can't remember if it was 3 months or whatever. But it wasn't enough time for the tribes to gather together and talk about early learning hub and what that might look like for the tribes. And one of the things that has and is always in the back of my mind is that, we do have opportunities to look at other funding through federal agency. However, sometimes those don't meet our need as far as using Western-centered curriculum and implementing that into our schools. But, it's not up to us to assimilate our own children. What we are looking for is a chance to provide a education that is centered around who we are, where we come from, and as a people. And this was part of the initial thoughts behind the early learning hub. And then now we, because it was going to be turned into a nonprofit, our tribes, more than likely wouldn't have us support a nonprofit. But that idea, that center is still not lost. Most of the tribes do and would like to teach their own language, their own culture, or even have curriculum embedded with those with our own culture in mind, our own language in mind. And so, you know, it's still going to be my fight. It's still going to be my, you know, my thought process where we're going to go. And I thought with the early, and this is my own personal thought, is that once the hub went out, that, you know, just like now where the funding is going to get cut back, just like now, you know, all the fears that once I had is now, you know, coming to light. And so I hope that when we consider what we would like to see for our kiddos and the future leaders of our tribe, that they have this and have this groundwork, this foundation that they can stand on, that they know who they are and where they come from.
Thank you,
Thank
Val.
you for adding that, Val. I think that that is what sets aside this funding differently than other requests. And I think we need to center that and keep putting that forward. I know we used a lot of our funds specifically for language and culture. And so I think it's really important that we keep that reminder in there, why the necessity of this fund and recognizing tribal sovereignty to push their language and culture forward from a place where they're at, because we know that all tribes are at a different place. And then I'd like to see a little bit of our Otella branding on this flyer a little bit. We had spent a lot of time on that branding, and you know, I think it's a way to also, you know, become recognizable in the future. So I would like to just see a little bit of that branding and coloring on this flyer. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have another version too that will circulate. And Val, thank you for naming that. Polina had shared something similar as well. I wanted to clarify too, what's happening with ARB isn't a reduction in funding. So the 70,000 is continuing. What's happened is that our request to create a fund is not going to be included in our request, but could still be included in the governor's request. So our hope is to fight for more funding. But as of right now, there's no risk to a reduction in funding from what you all are receiving this biennium. That is built into our current service level budget with inflationary adjustments for next biennium. So that'll be that will still be showing up in our agency request budget.
Yeah, and I just want to add the Otella branding. Our communications team can make it look pretty and can do all that stuff. And so we'll make sure that it has the Otella branding, because those colors are beautiful and the logo is wonderful. And it will be coming back for when this group is Otella officially.
And I'm just uploading a slightly different version that has more of an FAQ format. One of the pieces of feedback we've heard is I think a misunderstanding that the tribal early learning plan is a required plan for tribes to submit, rather than a plan that DELC must follow, that you all as tribes are creating. And so one of the things we want to help convey with this document is really the purpose and intention, and dispel any misconceptions about it, and really lean back into the expectation you all have set, and Val, the point you made that tribes have been left out in the past, or invisibilized and ignored, or considered like any other community, and that we're not recognizing the sovereignty of tribes, and that the purpose of this plan is to set expectations for DELC to meet. And the fund is intended to give you all as tribes broad, flexible ability to invest dollars where you think it's most needed to promote the goals you all define for early learning across the state. So that's one of our hopes with this document, and we will fold this into the Otella branding and colors, and we'll circulate this around as well, just to see if this feels like it's the right frame and approach. And then when we come back in September, to be able to demonstrate that there is support of the proposal to have a tribal early learning plan and fund, and that this, whatever document we come up with, that there's consensus to share that with the governor's office and interested legislators to help explain what these investments would do, as well as how much ideal funding you all would like to see for the first biennium, knowing we can always ask for more funding in future biennia.
And we're, just to add to that, we're also hoping that the 1-2-pager FAQ section, all of that can be helpful for you all, especially with the Dear Tribal Leader letters, to be able to have those conversations. And we also wanted to see if there's anything else that would be really helpful from us to help you, just because that the consultation is very important for the Tribal Early Learning Plan and Fund to move forward. Obviously, the governor wants to support it if the tribes support it. And so whatever we can do to support you and making sure that everyone has a good understanding of it. So if there's anything you can think of besides this kind of a document, feel free to let us know. And if you come up with something later on, just send me an email or give me a call. We'll do what we can to make it go smoothly, and have you be prepared. So I have a lot of follow-up items to send to you all. And I think the only other scheduling question that we have is just around October. So we've already talked about maybe a scheduling poll for September. And if we did push out the September meeting by like a week or so, that might actually be kind of nice to stagger with the October meeting if we wanted to meet around when we get the legislative concept back. And so that would be October 25th around. And so since TAC usually meets on Wednesday, I was just looking at the calendar and thinking that October 30th, like we could convene then. But I can also send just another scheduling poll for October if that's easier. I know it's kind of a while out, but I would love to hear from the group of what TAC thinks about meeting in October.
It might be something that you could send out one of those polls, and we could respond via email.
Yeah, I see a thumbs up from Jesse as well. So, oh, and Jemiah, I noticed that you popped on and I didn't say hi, but hi, Jemiah, I'm glad you're here. I knew Julie said you might be coming, so.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you don't have your background, your Star Wars one, the really cool background.
Yeah, I just the Star Wars background for a fuzzy one.
Yeah, well, that's all good. It's still good to see you. Okay. So we'll do a scheduling background. Wow, now I'm combining things. A scheduling survey for October's meeting as well, so we can have time to go over the legislative concept or the bill language that comes back. Sorry. Okay.
If we push back the September meeting, is that going to impact the presentation from the infrastructure fund or grant person visiting us or presenting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that, yeah, so September 30th is when that application closes. And I'm looking at the calendar right now. Our TAC meeting is scheduled September 11th. And if we were to push it out by one more to that next week, we'd be looking at like the week of the 16th. So sometime between the 16th and the 20th, if it works for enough TAC members. So we would be hearing from them a little bit later than the 12th. So if that feels like a higher priority, then, which obviously it is very important, then we could even look at earlier in September technically, but they're still available though. So if anybody wanted to contact Northwest Native Chamber in the meantime, I'll make sure that you have their contact information. Becky, I'm really glad that you asked about it, just because one of the leads on that project with Northwest Native Chamber is a Coquille citizen. So you probably would already know her. So it kind of works out really well. And is that a concern for anyone wanting to have their presentation earlier in September rather than after the Ed cluster?
Recognizing that we don't have, I think we don't have everyone, Dana, it seems like I think a poll makes sense. I imagine with the webinar happening this week, if folks can't join but you've registered, this should be recorded. And so would also just encourage folks to register for the webinar anyway to get that info. And then as Dana mentioned, we can still send individual at Northwest Native Chamber who's assigned to providing TA for this specific project, knowing that we have that September 30 is the first deadline we're facing.
All right. Yeah. When I do the scheduling poll, I'll include a note that that's one of our considerations for the September meeting. If that, because it's easy to forget the specifics of, oh, why were we doing that? So I will make sure to do that as well. And so there was only one other topic that we kind of wanted to go over with the remaining couple minutes we have here. And it's just kind of who's gonna be doing what between the subcommittee and the TAC between now and when Otella is stood up. And so we're kind of hoping to put together like a list of these are the things TAC will do. These are the things that the subcommittee would do. But let me pause for a second. I'm going to stop sharing because there is one more topic that is probably going to take our last few minutes up. And I apologize with timing that we don't have time to get to this, but we can circle back to it in our September meeting. And I already have some material put together, so we don't have to start from zero. We'll just be able to fine tune. So I think everyone's probably noticed that Paulina Whitehat, our Director of Tribal Affairs at DELC, is not on this call today. Alyssa, did you have a a presentation?
I have an update from Paulina. She wasn't able to put together a video like she'd hoped before she left, but Paulina is on leave through mid-September. She's traveled back to Arizona to help take care of her family. And when she returns in mid-September, she'll likely be returning part-time just while she assesses the needs of her family. So in the interim, Dana and Dory are working with our social equity office, so they have management support. I'll continue to join the TAC and work with Dana and Dory on all the Dear Tribal Leader letters and consultations, and you're welcome to contact any of us if you have questions. But we wanted to let you know and just ask for thoughts and prayers for Paulina and her family, and we're wishing everybody well right now. But wanted to make sure you knew that Paulina is on leave until about mid-September. Thanks, Dana.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking for myself and Dory, we already miss her and it's only been a couple of days. So I hope time starts going a little bit faster, but we know it's very important, and we totally support her taking care of the things that she needs to take care of. Family's very important, and we know she'll be back. So we'll just really miss her while she's out.
Absolutely.
And at least it's Dory and I, not just Dory by herself this time. So
Oh, yes, thank goodness.
right. Well, just to recap really quickly of some next steps for me and for TAC. I will work on organizing Northwest Native Chamber coming to our September TAC meeting, and I will do that after we have done a scheduling poll for September's meeting to kind of figure out if it works better to leave it or push it out. And I will do another scheduling poll for October for a work session, and that we can also discuss in that scheduling poll about times or locations, whether we wanted to do it in person or do virtual. And then Sonia requested we put together kind of some examples of what allowable expenditures are with the funds, like what's been spent in the past, and from what we've worked on so far, the desired allowable uses for the Tribal Early Learning Fund and plan based on what would be there in statute. And we'll also be putting together a couple of presentations. We'll put together a presentation for you to present at the Legislative Commission on Indian Services, as well as at the Early Childhood and Human Services Subcommittee. I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but to the legislature, and along with the sign-up form with some additional information about the location and timing once we have it, so that TAC members can sign up to testify at the legislature presentation or present at LCIS. And then
Dana, quick amendment. Let Dana know, or we'll get you Kate Dennison's info if you want to testify. So it's not going to be a public hearing. We'll coordinate the presentation.
Gotcha. Okay, so amendment to that. Thank you. I didn't have that captured in my notes. I appreciate it. Okay. And then in our September TAC meeting, we will go over the one pager and the one pager FAQs section that Alyssa shared and that I had shared, and make some updates to that based on your feedback. And I think that's it. I'm not sure if I missed anything, but this is recorded, so I can always go back and watch it. Did anyone else notice something that I might have forgotten or have anything to add before we close up?
Dana, since I came in the meeting so late, I was just hoping to, I think you usually send the recordings out, but will you be sending this one out? So
Yes,
I'd like to review everything that has been discussed prior to when I got here.
yeah, we will have, so the meeting's recorded, so it will be posted on our YouTube. And if it would be helpful, Jemiah, we can always schedule time to meet if you have more questions or would like a update more directly. We can also do that. That offer is open to anyone if you ever wanted to meet with me. I have a little link in my signature line in my email to book time with me. It's through Microsoft Booking, so you can always, anyone can just click on that and schedule time, or just let me know when works for you. So, yes.
Great, thank you.
Things recorded. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Well, that was a big meeting, and for getting started as late as we did, we still made it through everything. And so I just wanted to say thank you all of you for hanging in there. There was a lot. It wasn't all easy for this meeting, so we're gonna keep working on it. We're going in the right direction. Oh yeah, and the last thing I noted that I didn't state, by the way, Val, I wanted to make sure I stated this, that in our FAQ, we're going to work on including the language, culture, and heritage components in it very clearly about the purpose of the funds and the plan.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your comments on that. All right, that wraps it up. It's 4:30. Thank you all for being here. Have a great rest of your day. It's almost the end of the day on a Monday, so
Thank you.
thank you, Becky.